So Viture sent over their new Luma Pro XR glasses, and I've been taking a look at them over the last like 3 or 4 days or so, and I have some thoughts and opinions already because I am an existing Viture XR glasses user. And to be honest, there's a lot of good stuff in here. They are 50% sharper. There's a ton of just quality of life improvements across the glasses, and we're going to get into that here in just a little bit. But I did want to kind of start this story off by explaining how much I love and use my previous set of Viture glasses, which are these ones here. So these are the Viture XR Pros. This is another one of their high-end products that they released, I believe, last year, maybe the year before. These were gifted to me as a friend, so I had no idea what to expect going into them. I didn't really do any research into looking them up or anything before I received them. So I just used them candidly and they blew my mind. They became pretty much a staple in my routine of technology that I use every single day. And that means a lot for someone like me, if you watch this channel, who has a ton of technology already. These things became pretty much my companion piece to my Steamdeck OLED, my ROG Ally X, and even late nights, I would watch TV, anime, movies, things like that using these glasses. And I quickly formed a bond with them. So when Viture reached out and asked if they could send me their newest pair of glasses to try out, I wasn't even really sure what they could do to upgrade, the existing glasses I had. But of course, they found a way to make a ton of upgrades, and I really love the new glasses. So let's get into it. Now, to start it off, the styling upgrade on these glasses is super cool. Now, I'm a big fan of like that cyberpunk sort of aesthetic, and they've gone for like a translucent plastic, sort of like smoky look, as well as kind of like a carbon fiber accent here on the side. And there's even some light up LEDs that you can turn on or off on the glasses that I'll throw up in some B roll here in just a second. But yeah, these things look really cool. Now, the actual part where the optics sit is a little bit slimmer, which is going to allow them to sit closer to the face. Some things that some people pointed out with the last one is they sat kind of a little far on the nose, which didn't make them look super like a normal pair of sunglasses, I guess. But with these ones sitting much closer, not only are they going to appear, a little more natural, but it's also going to increase the field of view a little bit. So, I mean, that's going to obviously give you a little bit more immersion, which I think is awesome. And again, if you're going to wear these on somewhere like a plane or a bus or something in public and you don't want to be asked a bunch of questions, you might want to turn off that LED for one. But for two, I think them sitting kind of in this position is going to kind of help them to just blend in and seem a little more normal. I mean, of course, they're going to have a wire hanging down the side of your shoulder, but what can you do? Now, just like on the previous pair of Viture XR Pros, the Luma Pros also feature an electrochromatic film. And what that does is allows you to black out the glasses with the touch of a button on the side of the arm here, which is really fantastic. These do have two Sony OLED panels at 1200p running at 120 hertz. And so being OLED, of course, inky blacks and really bright, rich, vivid colors are kind of, the staple here. So being able to black out your surroundings is amazing for that. And to be honest, in the right setting, you really can't see anything from the outside world. But with the touch of a button, it becomes translucent again. And if you wanted to maybe walk around your house or maybe do some sort of light movement, you can totally see what's going on around you, which is definitely cool. Now, one really amazing upgrade that the Luma Pro series of glasses has is the ability to adjust the arms on the glasses themselves. Now, this might not make sense for a normal pair of glasses or sunglasses or something like that, but keep in mind the way that these function is essentially there are two screens here being angled straight at your eyes using mirrors. And because of that, angles are kind of everything, and being able to pitch this on your nose or on your eyes, however you get the most clear image, is super impactful. It was actually one complaint that I heard a lot of people had with the XR Pros was that you couldn't always see every corner of the screen depending on your anatomy of your face, because of course humans are all different. They try to get around that using the nose pads here, but this is just another layer of adjustability that really makes it a really human design that I think is super thoughtful. And if you take a look at my XR Pro glasses, you'll see that I actually don't have any nose pads attached at all. And that's how I was able to get around that issue of not being able to see the entire screen. I just took the nose pads off, pushed the glasses up to my eyes, and I really didn't have that issue. But I'm happy to report that with these glasses, I can actually wear the nose pads and have a good deal more comfort. And another upgrade that they added was the nose pads actually connect and disconnect magnetically. Now, with the XR Pros and the other glasses that they made, you kind of had to slide them into this little slot here at the bottom. It's going to be kind of hard to show on camera. This like tiny little ridge right here is where you had to clip them in, and they were a nightmare to try to get off. So once you got them on, you had to push pretty hard to get them off, and I was always worried that I was going to crack the glasses or do something to damage them, and so I just never bothered. Once I took them off and found a way to make them comfortable in my face, that's how I kept them. But with these, all you have to do is just it's a super light pull, and then they come right off, and they have numerous different sizes, so that way you can kind of fit all different faces. And these little rubber pads here just make it extra comfortable because, of course, these aren't like your standard, sunglasses or prescription glasses. They're going to have some weight in the front here because they're housing those screens. And so having those nose pads is just going to kind of comfort you. Now, over here on the right side of the glasses, there is a magnetic USB-C connection. It's really cool. It kind of reminds me of like the old MacBook Pro chargers. And the thought behind this is essentially if you were to have something come along and kind of tug at the wire, it would break off of the glasses rather than throwing the glasses across the room. And that way, both your cable and your glasses would be safe. I have heard some complaints that this can kind of get caught with hair and things like that. However, I do not have any hair, so I cannot speak to that experience. But I do think it's a thoughtful design. And they do include a little cover thing in the box that you can put over this part of the arm if that's an issue for you. But again, I can't really speak to that. Now, this might just be an assumption due to the fact that this is a gaming based YouTube channel, but I have a feeling that the vast majority of people looking to buy a pair of XR glasses, maybe even specifically these ones, are looking to use it for gaming applications, things like your Steam Decks, your ROG Allies, and things like that. So I just wanted to quickly cover the simplicity of using these glasses. Now, for most devices, all you're really going to need to do is connect the single USB-C cable into your device. And then upon doing so, within a second or two, it should detect the device, and then your image should be in the glasses, which is obviously what you're hoping for. Now, the beauty of that is that there's no additional software or drivers or anything to fiddle with. It's pretty simple just to get things up and running, but that's not the entire story. Now, an amazing thing about these new glasses is that they do support the Nintendo Switch 2, but unfortunately, the Nintendo Switch 2 itself does not support video out with a single USB-C cable. Now, that's a fault of the Nintendo product and not necessarily these glasses, as most things on the market can put out a video out with the USB-C, with the exception of obviously HDMI devices, but that's where this device comes into play. Now, this isn't necessarily a new product. This came out with the last line of products that they released. This is the Pro Mobile Dock. However, they have updated the firmware on this device to work with the Nintendo Switch 2, and there's a few other extra perks to having this device. So yes, you will need this in order to connect your Nintendo Switch 2 to the Viture Luma Pros. However, it's going to basically supply battery to the Switch 2 and then boot it into dock mode, meaning you're going to get the docked performance of the Nintendo Switch 2 on your glasses. And it's technically in a portable way because this battery is doing all the powering for that process to happen, which is actually pretty exciting because if you know anything about the Switch 2, there is a massive difference between the portable power of this device and the power that it's able to put out once it's actually on the dock. Now, furthermore, on that point, the Nintendo Switch 2 actually got the upgrade to having a 120 FPS screen, both in handheld and in docked mode. And I secretly think the real reason Nintendo went for that was not necessarily for it to be pushing most games at 120 FPS, but it was more so to give access to this device to other refresh rates that may be in between that 30 to 60 period. And what I'm talking about is obviously 40 FPS. Now, if you've used PC handhelds in the past, then you know that 40 FPS is actually a good deal smoother and more responsive than 30 FPS. So it's a happy middle ground. And the fact that these glasses do also support 120 hertz, and I have tested it, the Nintendo Switch is able to push the 120 hertz to these glasses. That's going to make games like Cyberpunk that run at 40 FPS just look super smooth compared to 30 FPS, which is another benefit. And even though this video isn't necessarily about this dock, I do think it's something that you should know if you're looking at maybe purchasing these and you own a Nintendo Switch 2, as well as a few other benefits that the dock provides. This does have an HDMI port, which means if you plug this into USB-C power and then connect an HDMI device, for example, maybe a laptop that doesn't have USB-C video out, or your home consoles like your Xbox Series X's and your PlayStation 5s, this is going to allow you to use the glasses with this as well. The other benefit to this dock is you actually have two ports for glasses. I own two pairs of glasses now. I don't know many households that may, but if I were to say take a trip with my wife and we're both sitting next to each other on an airplane and we wanted to share the same device to view on, it's really cool that we could connect up to two different pairs of glasses and say maybe play a game together or watch a movie. And speaking of watching TVs and movies, I want to talk about the visual experience of using a pair of glasses like these, specifically the Luma Pros that I have here in front of me. Now, if you've ever tried to watch, like, say, TV or movies or anything like that in a VR headset, something like an Oculus, it's not a fully convincing experience. It kind of feels like you're looking at a screen inside of a screen inside of a magnifying glass. And though it is bigger than watching your regular TV at home, it's just not an overall comfortable experience, especially because, VR headsets are big and bulky. Now, when it comes to these things, if you've never seen it with your own eyes, it's kind of hard to explain and it's really hard to showcase in the camera, but it really just looks like you have a big screen floating in front of you. It's crystal clear, like super clear. And the pixel density on these screens is obviously super high because these are really tiny screens just being projected very close to your face. So it's all about perception when it comes to these glasses. Now, they're saying that this is projecting out what is perceived to be a 152-inch screen. And I would say, from kind of just standing in different spots of my living room and measuring it against my own living room TV, which is about 75 inches, it really does feel like it holds true to 152 inches. And if you're coming from another pair of glasses like me, who had the Viture XRs before, which I believe were a perceived 120 inches, it is noticeably larger than that. 120 inches, of course, is still huge, but going from 120 to 152 or 153, whatever it is they quoted, is noticeable without a doubt. Now, taking a look at the website for this series of glasses, if you scroll down, one of the things you'll see a lot is they say 4K like display, but they are saying that it is 1200p. So they're not really trying to mislead anybody with this marketing. I think where they got this 4K like display idea is they showed this to a bunch of people and probably asked them if they thought it was 4K or something like that. Now, again, we're talking about perception a lot with these glasses. So it is very easy to believe that someone would perceive 4K like display having small, very high pixel dense screens in front of their face. Because again, they are 50% sharper than the last ones, and they are already really sharp. So it's kind of weird to see this marketing, in my personal opinion, but I am very happy to see that they're very upfront about it being 1200p and not actually 4K. And it being 1200p is also a benefit because you're able to push most of those pixels in a lot of the handhelds that we're using without any sort of big trouble. The last model that I had, the Viture Pros or XR Pros, were 1080p. And honestly, I thought that was plenty sharp, but putting these on, the 50% improvement in sharpness is definitely noticeable without a doubt. Now, if we take a look at the website here, there's actually four models of Viture Luma series glasses. The ones we're taking a look at, again, are the pros. These are the only ones that I've interacted with and have in front of me. So everything else is going to be kind of something that we're going to have to wait and see on. There is a slightly stripped down version called the Viture Lumas, but those aren't shipping until September. And then if you're more into the AR kind of capabilities of these glasses, they have two other variants coming out, which are the Viture Luma Ultra, which it looks like they have a couple extra cameras, as well as the Viture Beast. As far as what I know, I think that there's going to be different things that we're going to kind of have to wait and see to kind of figure out what the best use case for those other glasses are. But honestly, if you're just looking to pick up a pair of glasses to, watch your movies and play games on, and you don't really care about all that other type stuff, I would probably say stick between the Viture Lumas and the Viture Pros. And another thing that they're doing this time around is they actually have two different sizes of the glasses. So If your IPD is a little bit on the larger side, and if you don't know what IPD is, it's basically the distance between your pupils. This is kind of something that people know more of in the VR space because if your pupils aren't really properly aligned to some of these optics, the viewing experience might be a little less than optimal. However, they do offer those two different sizes. And if you've never measured your IPD, say at like an optometrist, you can just get a simple app on like your iPhone or something like that. And it'll kind of have you scan your face and sit still, and it'll kind of do something to measure it. I've used it before in the past for VR headsets to dial it in, and it seemed to be pretty accurate for me. Now, what I have here are the regular ones, and these are going to be an IPD of between 57.5 and 69.5 millimeters. The larger ones go up to 61.5 through 73.5 millimeters. But keep in mind, these aren't like looking through a VR goggle where there's like all crazy, like different shapes on the magnifying glass to kind of project the image into your eyes. They're far more forgiving with these, so I don't think it's as big of a deal. And I'm sure some of you may have noticed that I wear glasses, and you're probably wondering if I have a hard time seeing in these at all. And to be honest with you, I don't. I don't notice that I need my glasses or anything like that when I'm using these. And I do have a fairly light prescription, so that might have something to do with it. However, they do offer on the top of the glasses here these little dials, and they're basically diopters to help you dial in. And you can go all the way up to -4 on these ones. And that is a little bit of a downgrade from the XR Pros, which I believe went to -6. But it just depends on what your prescription is, how much you may need. They do also offer a prescription lens attachment that you can pick up on their website, but I really don't want to comment too much on that because I don't have that personal experience. However, it is nice that they do have that available to you. So if you're someone that has a light myopia, you might be able to just dial in exactly what you need right on the top of these glasses if you're within that -4 range, which I think is really amazing. Now, the glasses themselves don't have any onboard operating system outside of just changing light color profiles and adjusting volume on the built-in audio and brightness. So you're always going to need to be connected to something in order to kind of display an image. But I have good news. If you're someone that likes to travel light, their Spacewalker app, which is available for both iOS and Android, as well as PC and Mac, is amazing. So basically, you'll plug it into your phone or your tablet or whatever you're using, and you'll be offered a few different options. Now, if you have an Android device, or if you have the built-in charger splitter, which I'll show on screen here, you can use head tracking and things like that, and that's part of what this camera in the center of the glasses is for. Or if you'd like, which I prefer, they have a trackpad mode where basically when you're plugged into your phone, it'll just display a trackpad down at your phone, and you can kind of use that with your finger. It'll basically be your normal trackpad gestures, and you'll be able to browse things like Netflix and YouTube and even web browsers and things like that. And they're all self-contained within the app, which is pretty awesome. It's going to display, at the full capabilities of the glasses. And I just find that it's a really good time. That's how I've been watching a lot of my TV on there. I watched almost all of Cowboy Bebop start to finish in a pair of these glasses, and the app is the same as it is for the other glasses, and it just works really well. If you are somebody that has Android, you'll be able to take advantage of those head tracking capabilities without having to have that little splitter adapter that they sell. However, if you do own something like a Steam Deck or the original ROG Ally or something where you don't have an extra USB-C port, you might be picking up that adapter anyway, so that way you can actually charge your device while having the glasses connected. But it's honestly something that's really cool because if you're traveling light, like I mentioned, it's nice to be able to just put the glasses in your backpack, leave the handhelds at home, and just take this with you. And it does also work with quite a few streaming apps, both, game streaming and things like that. So they do sell a controller which has a USB-C power pass-through as well as a connection for the glasses, and it'll allow you to use that with things like xCloud or Moonlight game streaming. So it's a pretty cool experience that way as well. And another thing I didn't really mention too much about is there is built-in audio on the glasses themselves. It's actually tuned by Harman Audio, and it sounds quite good. And it does sound like an improvement over the last glasses. However, the downside is that it is basically going to be firing off of the ears of the glasses. So there is going to be obvious sound leak. My wife has asked me numerous times when I'm playing games in bed to put on a pair of headphones when she's trying to watch TV. So it's just something to keep in mind. If you're in a private setting where you don't have to really worry about it, then they're great and they work pretty good. But if you're in a more noisy environment or you're around other people and you don't want them listening in on what you got going on, you can still wear a pair of headphones because they're not like covering up the rest of your ears or anything like that. So it's not a big deal. So, in conclusion, I really like these glasses. I think they're a worthy upgrade over the last ones. Maybe don't jump out and buy these if you already own the XR Pros, but if you're definitely shopping the market for a pair of XR glasses, I think that the Luma series is amazing. And the cool thing is, they want to share a 10% discount with all of my viewers. So there's going to be two links down in the description down below. If you're interested, it's going to save you 10%. You are able to pick it up either directly from Viture, or an amazing benefit is they do actually sell directly on Amazon. So if you're kind of on the fence and you're not really sure, the great thing about Amazon is hassle-free returns, quick shipping, and things like that. So if you are interested in picking up a pair, make sure you check out that link down below. Save yourself 10%. And thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.